The meeting of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr has asked to be excused tonight due to illness. Director O'Halloran.
Here.
Director Peterson.
Here.
Director Taylor.
In attendance.
Chair Herndon.
Present.
We have 4 committee members present.
The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding the interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. Those who wish to speak on tonight's items were required to register to speak in advance of the start of the meeting. When you're called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name of record. I ask those who are waiting to speak virtually to remain on the platform until you are called to speak. After a speaker's time is up, they may continue to follow the meeting at one of the broadcast options mentioned previously. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the Chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed for any one speaker.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, or to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting before the meeting resumes. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, the staff of the superintendent's office, the Office of Board Governance, and the Office of Accountability and Efficiency, and those who've been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during or after meetings of the board and its committees. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access the evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page on the MPS website and choosing Online Agendas. Madam Secretary, item 1, please.
Item 1 is a report with possible action on the actuarial valuation of the district's obligation for other post-employment benefits, OPEB, as of July 1st, 2021. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. This evening, we are reporting on the district obligations to other post-employment benefits, OPEB, as of July 1st of 2021. I have here with me Carol Eady, Senior Director of Benefit and Pension and Compensation Services, to lead us through the report. Joining us this evening is Alex Rivera from GRS. And after which, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Carol?
Good
Thank
evening,
you.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee. Carol Eady, Senior Director of Benefits, Pension, and Compensation. As Dr. Posley stated, tonight we will be presenting to you the retiree health and life insurance programs, the valuation report prepared by Gabrielle Roeder and Smith. And with me, we have Alex Rivera, who's going to walk us through the presentation. And again, we can answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. Chair Herndon, members of the committee, this is Alex Rivera with Gabriel Roeder Smith, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the results of the actuarial valuation. And we have a presentation with a brief summary of the actuarial valuation results at July 1, 2021. And one of the key objectives of this valuation is to determine the actuarially determined contributions that would effectively produce 100% funding by 2037. So there's a funding policy to pre-fund benefits, and again, that's one of the main objectives of this valuation, is to determine the dollar amounts needed for full funding. So I'm going to go to the next page of the presentation. And since the last valuation at July 1, 2019, we made a few changes to the valuation. One of them is the expected return on invested assets. So we reduced the rate to 6.5%, and that's due to changes in capital market assumptions and expectation on investment returns. And this is a long-term assumption. Remember, the objective here is to collect contributions, invest assets, so that assets are sufficient to cover projected liabilities at 2037. There's also another rate that we use in our valuation, and that's called the discount rate. And the discount rate is used to effectively determine the present value of future benefits. So there's a difference in the valuation rates, discount rates, due to the difference of liabilities versus assets. Now, the rate at June 30, 2020 of 5.33, that was actually updated to 5.75 at June 30, 2021. And I know that there's a disparity in the rates, but the key reason for the difference in the discount rate and the investment return is that there's a significant amount of benefits that are being paid in the short term. So as this plan becomes more well-funded, the discount rate, which is really used to measure the liability, and the investment return, those two will converge and be closer. But it's going to take some time between those two are actually the same. So that introduces a little level of conservatism, which helps shore up the pre-funding contributions and the ability to reach full funding. So again, slightly different rates for the purpose of the measurements. Now, since the last valuation, we made a couple changes in the assumptions. One was the per capita claim cost, and that's used to project expected benefit payments. And the good news is that the claims experience and the premium experience was favorable since the last valuation. A lot of that had to do with a Medicare Advantage plan, the MAPD plan. So the market is right now very favorable on the MAPD side. So that's driving down costs. So we expect these savings to continue, but to the extent that there's deviation as far as these near-term gains, that will affect the valuation. But for now, it's favorable as far as the per capita cost. Now, we also use what's called the pension-related assumptions, and that's really a set of assumptions that's used to determine the likelihood that the member will retire and start collecting OPEB benefits. And then eventually that member, once they reach retirement in the future, there's a probability or likelihood that the member will pass away and benefits stop. So the mortality assumption is included in that set of assumptions. So on the next page, the measure of the liability is currently $846 million at July 1, 2021. The last measurement, the liability was roughly $946 million. So from 946 to 846 million, which is a favorable decrease. Part of the decrease was due to the discount rate, and the other was due to healthcare-related assumptions due to favorable claims experience. Now, the reason why we're able to reduce the discount rate to 5.75 is because the plan received additional pre-funding contributions, and we'll touch on those additional contributions in later slides. So that's important to the extent that additional contributions are made to pre-fund the program, and those contributions are invested and earn, for example, 6.5%, a larger percentage of investment income would be used to pay benefits instead of PAYGO. PAYGO benefits are much more expensive to finance and budget, but if there's a pool of assets available and investment income is used to pay those benefits, that's very favorable. So the next bullet, we touch upon the additional pre-funding contributions for 21 and 22. So roughly 56 million and 29 million for 22. Again, significant pre-funding contributions, which help shore up the funded status of the plan. Now, in our valuation, we also calculate the additional pre-funding contributions needed to finance the alternative C benefits. That dollar amount decreased from 6.7 million to 2.9 million. So it's a favorable decrease, and the key reasons are favorable investment returns, additional pre-funding contributions, and that's the second bullet point, and again, favorable claims experience. So I know this table is hard to read, so I'll just highlight some of the key items on the table. And we have a history of the actuarial liabilities. And the key takeaway here is really that the liability, since the last measurement, it decreased from about 946 million to 851 million. And again, it's due to favorable claims experience and a higher discount rate. Now, if you look at the asset side, assets increased from 184 million to 271 million. So that effectively is closing the gap of the unfunded liability. And that's really, the reason to pre-fund these benefits is close that gap, improve the funded status, and reach the fully funded plan at 2037. That's the target, that's the goal. So right now, the unfunded actuarial liability is roughly $580 million, and just 2 years ago, that unfunded status was $762 million. So again, that's a market improvement in the funded status of the plan. Now, the PAYGO contribution that's also important to measure, because if the PAYGO contribution isn't managed, then the cost of the plan could actually escalate even more. So in the last measurement, 2020, the PAYGO contributions were $47 million. Currently, they're about $49 million. That type of growth is actually very stable. That's favorable. We've seen plans where the increase in costs could be 10, 15, 16%. So this is good, management of healthcare cost. This is very favorable. We also have some comments here or some information on the total contributions for 21 and 22, 104 million and 78 million. And again, part of that is due to the pre-funding of the program. So on the next slide, we have what's called a gain-loss analysis. And really, all this is a picture or an explanation of the key factors which cause the actuarial liability to increase or decrease at the measurement date. So the key takeaway here is that at the 7/1/21 measurement, liabilities decreased by about 63 million. And again, that's due to favorable claims experience and adjustments to the healthcare-related assumptions used in our model. So that's very favorable news. Now, the other key item, if you look at the change in the discount rate, liabilities decreased by about 37 million. And that's due to decreasing or increasing the discount rate from 5.33% to 5.75. So in total, that's roughly about 100 million. So those were the two key components which drove the liability down. Now, on the next slide, we have a graph, and this may be difficult to read on the screen, but the key takeaway here is the gap between assets and liabilities. So the top line, and let's look at the last valuation, which is the dash line. The top line represents the actuarial liability. And during our last valuation, the projected liability at 2022 is roughly 952 million. Now with the new measurement, the liability is 850 million. Now that liability is decreasing because this is a closed plan. If this plan were open, this liability could actually increase. So that's it, a key takeaway of this slide, that we have a decreasing liability because it's a closed plan. But at 2037, the liability is, under the new valuation, it's roughly 660 million. And under the old valuation, roughly 641. So we have a little bit of shift, and that's due to demographics and also the impact of alternative C. So more individuals are retiring sooner under alternative C. That's causing some increase in the liability. All right, so if we look at the bottom line, we have a black solid line and a dash green line. And This represents a measurement of projected assets. So currently, assets are in the neighborhood of 271 million. And assets, based on the funding policy, which includes the additional pre-funding contributions, assets are projected to reach 660 million at 2037, and the plan is projected to be fully funded. So again, that's assuming that expectation emerges. So there's still some volatility in these projections, but it's important that we refresh the contribution rates so that the target could be reached. So on the next slide, we have a comparison of contributions. And the bottom line represents the pre-funding contributions needed to finance alternative C benefits. So under the old valuation, the target dollar amount, and this is a level amount, it's roughly 6.7 million. Under the new measurement, it's closer to 2.9 million. So again, a market decrease in the level dollar contribution for alternative C. And again, the key reasons are favorable claims experience and favorable investment returns. And the most important feature of why the contributions are lower is really the additional pre-funding contributions. So that's what's really driving this level dollar amount to 2.9. Now, the top line represents the PAYGO contributions with a 5% margin. And under the old valuation, benefits were increasing. The initial amount was roughly 55 million, and it's projected to increase to roughly 67, and then taper down to 63. And the reason we see that shape is because this is, again, a closed plan, and as members reach Medicare age, the average benefits are lower than the non-Medicare benefits. So we have a high, at the tail end, we have a higher proportion of post-Medicare benefits being paid. So that's one of the reasons for the decrease. Now, the red line represents the same measurement, but using the updated valuation. And again, we see a similar shape with lower projected benefits due to, again, favorable claims experience. So I believe that's it for the presentation. Those are our prepared comments. And at this point, Director Herndon, do you have any questions or?
I should have asked this at the beginning. What exactly does PAYGO mean?
Okay, good question. It's benefit payments that are not pre-funded and that are paid as they occur. So for example, you have an expense of let's say, 30,000 for a procedure. Those benefits are expected to be paid within, let's say, 3 or 4 months, depending on the lag. So those benefits are effectively paid within the fiscal year, and there's no pre-funding mechanism to pay those benefits. So it's really, think of it similar to cash cost.
Thank you. This is, I mean, obviously having favorable experiences, it's a good report to receive as a board member. You know, are there any risks that you feel like we should be made aware of, or anything that we should be watching so that we're making the best decisions and making sure we're covered and our staff is covered?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And I would say right now, increase in cost due to inflation. So right now, it's difficult to tell how inflation will impact the healthcare market, and prescriptions, for example, could escalate the cost of prescriptions. And it will probably have a bigger impact on the pre-Medicare side as opposed to the post-Medicare side. I think the costs on the post-Medicare side are more controlled. But I would say understanding the inflationary impact on healthcare cost. Secondly is there were favorable investment returns 2 years ago. So in our report, and maybe I could flip to the page because there is a summary of the returns. Let's see if I could find that. Yeah, on page 5 of the presentation, there's a summary of the actual rate of investment return. So in 21, investments earned 23. In 22, negative 13, not so good. So what's going to happen in 2023? We hope that the markets turn around and that there's a recovery as far as the negative returns. But negative returns could put a drag on the investment earnings of the trust, which would mean additional cash pre-funding contributions. So that's a risk. So hopefully that will stabilize in the near future. Now, it's important to note that these are long-term projections. So on average, hopefully we'll get close to the 6.5 target. That's the expectation. But if the capital market assumptions show that it's more difficult to attain 6.5 because of other risk, then we'll adjust our assumptions accordingly. So that could increase contributions, pre-funding contributions.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. So I know we're saying tentatively, so I just look at it, say it's like provides pre-funding contributions to reach 100% by 2037, and giving you just to talk about how 2023 can throw us some curveballs. I guess in what estimate or tentative percentage will it actually be that 100% by 2037? Or are we just taking a really, not wild guess, but a really projected guess?
Well, excellent question. And we work with probabilities and likelihood. These are long-term projections, so it's difficult to provide the likelihood that this event will happen, because there are so many factors that go into these calculations. But when we perform these calculations, what we're trying to do is really take a middle of the road, or not overly conservative or pessimistic in our projections. And that gives you kind of, we don't want to say 50-50. It's probably higher than 50-50. But we want some assurance that there's in the neighborhood of maybe 70 or 75% that this target would be reached. But remember that we have the ability to correct our estimates as we perform evaluation every year. So we're going to have volatility. We may not hit the bogey with the current pre-funding contribution rate, but it could be corrected. And what we hope is that the correction isn't too volatile.
Thank you. Spoken like a true numbers person. Thank you. I'm a numbers person, but yeah.
Thank you so much.
One last question. In terms of looking forward at the next budget for the district, what recommendations do you have in terms of what we have to put into the OPED account so that we are keeping our heads above water, so to speak?
Well, our valuation, we have, we're providing a pre-funding target, but then there's also the pay-go contribution. So right now, the pre-funding target for alternative C is in the neighborhood of 3 million or so. Now, the pay-go, or the cash costs, that really depends on the experience of the plan. But we expect those costs to be in the neighborhood of maybe 50 million or so. But I would say that the healthcare consultants have a better measurement of the expected cost for the following year. Remember, we're taking information and we're trying to project that over a very long period. The healthcare consultants, they have more information that gives them the ability to estimate over the short term. So two different measurements. But I don't think it's going to be too far off from the $50 million target. And that's net of a retired member contributions. I just wanted to clarify that. So this would be the employer's cost.
Mr. Chasen. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were ready to speak. With that, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
we have no request for public testimony on that item. Item number 2 is action on monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, action on leaves of absence, the report on certificated resignations and classified retirements, and the affirmative action report. The administration recommends that the board approve this item.
Would the
as
administration
attached.
please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of the monthly personnel and reporting items before you. Adria Madalini, Chief Human Resource Officer, is here with me this evening, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Magdalene.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Adria Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. With regard to the personnel matters, I'm happy to report that we have done a lot more hiring this month when you look at our classified and our certificated staff. So I'm happy to report a significant increase when it comes to this time last year. I think our job fairs that have taken place here at Central Office have definitely helped us. And we're actually having another one tomorrow. If anyone is listening and interested in looking for employment, stop by Central Office. We have positions from teachers, bookkeepers, paraprofessionals, building service helpers, food service, safety assistants, secretaries. We have people available to interview and do testing tomorrow from 2 to 6 o'clock here at Central Office in the auditorium. So please stop by if you're interested, and we'll be happy to let you know what opportunities we have available. Resignations, I'm happy to report. When we look at this time last year, we're trending a little better on the classified side when it comes to resignations and retirements. We're a little bit higher, up by 3 when it comes to our certificated and our teacher positions. But we're continuing to push forward with hiring all positions, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear the good news. Are there any comments or questions by committee? Director Peterson.
Could you tell us how many openings we still are facing in terms of teachers?
Chair Herndon, Director Peterson, Adria Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Yes, we currently have 196 teacher vacancies, and we have 233 paraprofessional vacancies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have members of the public that wish to make comments, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I move approval of the administration's recommendations for promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the monthly personnel matters. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye,
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 3, which is action on the recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. Madam Chair?
Yes.
After conversing with the administration is recommending that this item be forwarded to the board without recommendation.
Okay. Committee members, do you have any comments or questions? If not, could we get a motion, please, to move this to full board without recommendation? Director O'Halloran,
I move that we forward this to the full board without recommendation.
thank you. Madam Chair?
On Director O'Halloran's motion
Yes.
to move this item to the full board without recommendation from the committee. Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Taylor? Chair Herndon?
Aye,
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 4, which is action on the request to approve conservation easements between Milwaukee Public Schools, the City of Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District. The recommendation is that the board approve the limited-term conservation easements between MPS, the City of Milwaukee, and the MMSD.
Thank you. Do committee members, would the administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening I have with me Sean Kane, Director of Facilities and Maintenance, to share out on the item pertaining to conservation easement. Following him sharing out, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Sean?
Thank you, Dr. Posley, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. Sean Kane, Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services. The conservation easement that we're looking to have passed is the typical document that we've been working with all the green infrastructure projects, and those are the 5 sites, the recent cohort that was done not this last summer, but the summer before. And it's an 11-year maintenance agreement that we work with MMSD as a good partner, along with Green Solutions through the City of Milwaukee, DPW. And it's one of the documents that we typically follow through with. And it's once it's approved, we circulate for signatures for all the parties.
Thank you very much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran.
I move we approve administration's recommendation as it pertains to the limited-term conservation easements.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? If not, will the secretary please call the roll?
On the motion as read into the record by Director O'Halloran to approve the requests for conservation easements as outlined in the attachment to this item. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Okay, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 5, which is action on a request to approve the proposed 23-24 school calendars. Madam Chair, after consulting with the administration is requesting that this item be forwarded to the full board without recommendation.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask for a motion to move this item forward without recommendation. Director Taylor. Okay. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Taylor's motion to move this item to the full board without recommendation, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson. Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 6, which is action on a request for an early start date for Ronald Wilson Reagan College Preparatory High School, for Rufus King International High School, and Casimir Pulaski High School for the 23-24 school year. The recommendation is that the board approve the request for early start no later than August 1st, 2023, and authorize the administration to submit the request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction prior to the January 1, 23 deadline for the early start for the 23-24 school year for the following schools: Reagan, Rufus King International High School, and Casimir Pulaski.
Okay. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening, we're bringing our annual requests for the early start dates for Ronald Wilson Reagan College Preparatory High School and Rufus King High School and Casimir Pulaski High School for the 2023-24 school year. To share out on this item, I have with me this evening Dr. Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region. Following her presentation, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Dr. Smith.
Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region. This item is an annual request for our IB diploma program schools. The request was initiated in order to meet the recommended seat hours or hours of instruction for those IB diploma program exams. With the IB exams being held the first week of May each year, the additional 3 weeks on the front end of our school calendar does give us the recommended number of seat hours or hours of instruction to set our students up for success on those very rigorous exams.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions of this item? Director Peterson.
My question is, does this affect other high schools? That is to say, are we on a, I know we have the early and the traditional, is this an early? If you know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm. Director Herndon, members of the committee, this is the early start calendar. So this item actually, and the request annually predates the early start calendar for all of the secondary schools. The early start calendar, one of the reasons for the early start calendar for all of the secondary schools is to support those college level exams like IB, but also AP. But the IB schools had initiated this annual request prior to the district early start calendar.
Thank you very much. Director Taylor.
Thank you. I know for the previous item, we forwarded without recommendation. I just wanted to know, going forward with this one, will we have to do any corrections, or if it's just separate before I'll make a motion on it?
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, no, there will not be any corrections on this one.
I'll move approval of the item.
Go ahead, please.
I'll move approval of the item.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments or questions from committee? If not, Madam Secretary.
Madam
Please
Chair, we
call
have
the
no
roll.
request for public testimony on this item. On Director Taylor's motion to approve the request for an early start date for Ronald Wilson Reagan College Preparatory High School, Rufus King International High School, and Casimir Pulaski High School for the 23-24 school year. On the motion as read, Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Taylor? Chair Herndon?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 7, which is action on a request to establish the Milwaukee Public Schools Retirement Plan Committee. The recommendation is that the board approve the amendments 1 through 3 and the establishment of the Retirement Plan Committee and its members as outlined in attachments 4 and 5 to this item.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening, we're seeking your approval on the request to establish a retirement plan committee to oversee the Milwaukee Public Schools 403B plan, Milwaukee Boards of School Directors Supplemental Plan for Teachers, and the Milwaukee Board of School Directors Early Retirement Supplement and Benefit Improvement Plan. I have with me this evening Carol Edie, Senior Director of Benefit and Pension Services, and together we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Mr. Chasen?
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. I just wanted to confirm, as I think there might have been some fluidity on it, the makeup of the committee will be comprised of representatives from Milwaukee Public Schools, the Chief Human Resource Officer, the Chief Financial Officer, and then whoever sits in this chair, the Senior Director of the OAE. Additionally, the Executive Director of the City of Milwaukee's Deferred Compensation Plan, the Deputy Corporate Counsel for Milwaukee County, and then also additionally the Executive Director of ASC and the President of the MTEA. And that will comprise the committee makeup going forward, subject to your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Taylor?
That we are correct within the wording. So.
Thank you. Administration?
Chair Herndon, Director Taylor, members of the committee, Carol Edie, Senior Director of Benefits, Pension, and Compensation. Yes, that is correct. The MTEA actually nominated the president to be on the committee, so it was the way it's worded. The attorney said, just so that it's clear, it was a recommendation from MTEA.
Thank you.
Also, another concern, and I just feel like with everything being public, I want to get this out. Given that this is a committee that's going to be for those that are retirement or talking about retirement, forthcoming for anyone that it will affect having to also either vote or speak on this, that we were, and I'm not an attorney, but I just want to think of our attorney words, that we were doing everything by the book as within this committee. I just want to make sure we also have that out on public record before we may receive any emails or someone not understanding what this means.
Administration?
Chair Herndon, Director Taylor, members of the committee, Carol Edie, Senior Director of Benefits, Pension, and Compensation. Yes, we will make sure that, any communication goes out and everything is clear with regards to the committee and any changes or things like that that will be made. Did that answer your question?
Go ahead, please. Director Taylor?
I want to say technically it does, so I'm going to go with that. I see Dr. Mann that may have a clarifying answer, so I am going to pause there if it's okay with you, Chair Herndon.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, did you wish to speak? And next will be Mr. Chasen.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, just so that it is a part of the official record, we have been in communication with the administration so that any changes that the board would not be required to approve, that the board would be informed about. So once the committee meets and makes changes to any plans, that they are not required to report, to the board for approval, that the board will still be informed. So while there is not a formal approval required for some of the activities, we have asked that the board at least be informed of the activities.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chasen, you're okay? Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions from committee? Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, what is the pleasure of this committee with respect to this item? Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I'll move
Is there further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Taylor's motion to approve the administration's recommendation to establish the MPS Retirement Plan Committee. On the motion as read into the record, one moment, I just want to make sure that I'm capturing. The entire recommendation is that the board approve the plan amendments 1 through 3 and the establishment of the Retirement Plan Committee and its members as outlined in the attachments number 4 and 5 to this item. And that is the administration's recommendation. On the motion as read into the record, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 8, action on monthly finance matters. Authorization to make purchases, the report on change orders in excess of $25,000, acceptance of the report on revenues and expenses, the monthly expenditure control report, the report on budget transfers, the report on contracts under $50,000 and their cumulative totals, the report on monthly grant awards, and the acceptance of donations. The recommendation is that the board, 1, authorize the purchases as listed in the attachments to this item, and 2, accept the donations as listed in the attachments with appropriate acknowledgments to be made on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening we're asking for your approval on the monthly finance matters before you. I have Janine Adamczyk here with me, and between the two of us, we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions on this item? Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Director Peterson.
I move approval of the administration's recommendation on this item.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on this item? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Peterson's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the monthly finance matters, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 9, which is action on the award of professional services contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the professional services contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening we're asking for your approval of the professional services contracts before you. Janine Adamczyk, Director of Procurement and Risk Management, is here with me this evening, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran, I'm sorry.
I move approval of administration's recommendations regarding the professional services contracts.
Is there further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the award of professional services contracts, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 10, which is action on the award of exception to bid contracts. Exception to bid request. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exception to bid request as set forth in the attachments to this item based on the exceptions as outlined in the item.
Okay, would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we're asking for your approval of the exception to bid contracts before you, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions of this item? Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. For item number 2, is this a new service?
Administration.
Director Herndon and members of the committee, Janine has taken a closer look at this and will be prepared to give you an answer. Janine?
Chair Herndon, Director Taylor, members of the committee, Janina Domchik, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. This is a result of a grant, and it appears that we have done these services with Marquette in the past, and it is continuing as a result of the grant that we have been issued.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from committee? Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Peterson. Okay, if there's no further comments, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Peterson's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the award of exception to bid request, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 11, which is action on the request to waive administrative policy 3.09, parent 9, parent E, and extend a contract with E&A Services LLC. The recommendation is that the board waive the policy and issue the contract as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening we're requesting your approval of this item as it relates to a contract with E&A Services LLC. I have with me Janina Domchak, and we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have. After sharing out on this item, go ahead.
Okay.
Chair
Okay,
Herndon,
please.
members of the committee, Janina Domchik, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. This item is the first extension for these services. This is part of the E-rate program that we participate in every year. And this was the first extension in response to the RFP 1055 that we had initially issued. And we're happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
I move approval of the administration's recommendation on the E-rate reimbursement.
On Director Peterson's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the request to waive administrative policy 3.09, parent 9, parent E, and extend a contract with E&A Services LLC. On the motion as read into the record, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
The next item is item 12, action on a request to waive administrative policy 3.09, parent 9, parent E, and extend a contract with the Charter Communications Operating LLC. The recommendation is that the board waive the policy and enter into the contract as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Would administration please present this item?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening, we're requesting your approval of this item as it relates to a contract with Charter Communications LLC. I have with me Janina Dumchek, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have. And actually, she's going to share out on this item as well.
Go ahead, please.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Janina Domchik, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. This item is the first contract extension that we are requesting with Charter Communications Operating LLC for leased Metro Ethernet services. The contract would run from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. And we were happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Just going up on the notes here when it says like the performance metrics and a minimum score of 90 points. I get that this is the first extension, but is this something that we extend, or is this a requirement we put on all first extensions and contracts? And I'm just thinking because we made it in bold for the public, so I'm kind of wondering if this is regular business for us or if this is an exception.
Thank you. Administration.
Chair Herndon, Director Taylor, members of the committee, Janina Domchik, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. Director Taylor, we provide metrics with respect to our RFPs for contract extensions. It's a standard practice for the district.
Happy to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, you okay? Thank you. Are there any members, Madam Secretary, of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item?
I move we approve administration's recommendation to waive administrative policy 3.099E and issue the contract as set forth in the attachment.
If there's no further discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to item number 12. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Okay, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 13, action on a request to waive administrative policy 3.09, parent 9, parent E, to enter into a contract with Folic Content Solutions LLC and Mackin Educational Resources for library books and library materials. The recommendation is that the board waive the policy and issue the contract as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening, we're requesting your approval of this item as it relates to the contract with Follett Content Solutions, LLC, and Mackin Education Resources. At this time, I'm going to ask Janina Dumchek to report out on this item. Janine?
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Janina Domchik, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. We're asking that you approve these two blanket contracts with these vendors. Each contract would be for $800,000. The initial term of the contract would run for each vendor from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025, with the option to extend for 2 additional one-year terms upon mutual consent and if certain performance metrics are met. This would allow schools throughout the district to make purchases for their libraries as they needed. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments from committee? Director Peterson.
I'm just curious if there is a book that, if the book that the librarian wants to buy for the library in MPS, would these two providers have that book? I mean, it's like they like sell everything. I know part of it is, I know sometimes people look for books in Spanish. They have to go to overseas, to find those books that are published.
Administration.
Chair Herndon, Director Peterson, members of the committee, Janine Adamczyk, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. Yes, these vendors should be able to supply the needs of the district for virtually any book. I mean, barring some unknown rarity, but the committee vetted both of these vendors based upon their offerings and felt these were the two best choices for the district.
Are there any more comments? Do any members of the public wish to make comments, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran.
I move approval of the contracts as attached.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to item 13, Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 14, which is action on the monthly facilities matters. The FMS award of construction construction contracts, professional services contracts, and the recommendation and report with possible action regarding air quality. The recommendation is that the board approve the attached construction contract and professional services contract and accept the air quality report.
Okay, would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of the monthly facilities matters as it relates to facilities and maintenance services awards, constructions, professional services contracts, and reports regarding air quality. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Sean Kane to provide us with information on our air quality report. Sean?
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities Maintenance Services. I'll provide air quality updates. As mentioned in the previous report, DFMS is continuing to work with 4 current integrated project delivery contractors, IPDs for short, that are approved in July of 2021. Our facilities team has been working with the contractors, owners rep, Concord Group, and I've asked them to provide me a summary of activities through November of 2022. After IPD contractors identified project goals and critical objectives during the later part of 2021, scopes related to air quality were defined after reviewing school information, site investigations, and checking the DFMS deferred maintenance list. Contracts were issued based on IPD cost estimates within their school assignments. The IPD teams, the owner's rep, and DFMS has been meeting weekly to discuss budget, schedule, and address any outstanding scope concerns. The IPD teams have been working on the design and construction documents to solicit formal and competitive bids for ESSER 2 projects for their subcontractors conforming to the requirements in Board Policy 3.09. Bids continue to come in for testing and balancing, water bottle stations, outdoor classrooms, bug screens, and mechanical projects. Our team hopes to finalize ESSER 2 project budgets after receiving all bids by the end of December. Then we hope to see if the allocated contingency will need to address cost overruns with the unpredictable market or additional deferred maintenance projects potentially moving forward. Unfortunately, we have seen construction costs run up to 15 to 20% over where we were before the pandemic. Therefore, it is start to become a balancing act of what scope related to capital improvements can be done with ESSER 2 funds, and some improvements may need to be absorbed into ESSER 3 funds. Concurrently, IPD contractors have been working on mechanical projects, new flooring installations, outdoor classrooms, and water bottle stations that will address air quality. The team had to be creative due to the aggressive schedule and ESSER 2 deadlines to continue scope performance. In addition, DFMS and the owner's representative have been working with IPD teams to identify long lead time items such as bug screens and flooring product to purchase these materials so we can expedite the construction schedules that will run through September of 2023. Efforts to get testing and balancing done on mechanical projects is well underway. Once reports are generated, we can address any potential deficiencies on the mechanical systems to improve air quality in the buildings. As for all the mass quantity of projects going on across the district, despite being an ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 project, DFMS, the owner's representative, and IPD contractors have been in touch with school leaders to coordinate and schedule all efforts within school buildings. This is extremely important as ESSER 2 projects related to air quality continue or finish up will more than likely have an impact on ESSER 3 projects that include capital projects, additions, remodeling, painting, or other school-requested projects. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that wish to make comments or ask questions?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Oh, okay. Do committee members wish to ask questions or ask?
Thank you. So I understand that we won't have a full, like an actual estimate until all those bids come in about where we're going to land financially. Do you have any concerns about the likelihood of being able to bring all of ESSER 2 that we had planned, getting that actually done within ESSER 2 timeframe, given not just that it's more expensive, but also potentially like lead time or permitting or any other issues, or, you know, competing with other construction projects in the city? Like, are there any concerns about whether we would be able to meet those deadlines?
Administration?
Chair Herndon, Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities and Maintenance Services. Yeah, our teams are taking a very close look at seeing where things are for lead times, what other premiums we're paying for costs or for construction activities, cost overruns with the market, et cetera. And right now, that's kind of the thing I was mentioning. It's kind of a balancing act where we're looking at where we're at with ESSER 2. We had $109 million approximately allocated for facilities projects, and we took a look at all those categories with testing and balancing, capital projects, water bottle stations, outdoor classrooms, bug screens, flooring, et cetera. So we're trying to take a look at where that is coming into, or kind of where the numbers are finalized. And that's the thing that we're probably getting a good grasp as bids are coming in, competitive bids with the IPD contractors, with their subcontractors. The goal is that at the end of this calendar year, we should have a good understanding of where we're at. Some of the adjustments we're looking to do is hate to say it, if we have to punt into ESSER 3, knowing that we're not going to meet that time frame or deadline with ESSER 2 for the September of 2023, we're looking at that and entertaining that idea to see where costs are. So right now, like I said, it's kind of a balancing act to seeing where we're at with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, because it is important dealing with that deadline. I mean, that's the very important thing that, you know, that's definitely on our radar. So yes, we're taking a look at that. We're looking at other creative ways to bring in other contractors, subcontractors. I know we met with Mr. Chasen at some point too through Office Accountability, that, you know, see if there's certain ways that, even working with the city attorney, if there's ways to make sure we're adhering to 3.09 for bidding procedure, but what ways can we help ourselves? Because again, too, we're trying to find that pool of contractors, especially some of the ones that may have not really bid on our projects in the past, that we're trying to even open that pool up to see if we can expand that. So yeah, I mean, really anything's on the table right now. But yes, we are definitely taking a look at things. Do I have concerns? Rightfully so. I just want to make sure that we have these dollars committed, that we're spending them, and also making sure we're getting the biggest bang for our construction dollar.
Okay, thank you very much. Any follow-up? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. So I was just wondering what the process would be if there needs to be any significant changes to the plan. You know, will it come back to the board if it goes over like a certain percentage, or if it's just so that we're kind of in the loop on whatever changes may need to, like, if we're planning to do that through the budget process, just how would we be made aware of any changes to the plans that we currently understand?
Administration.
Director O'Halloran. Oh, my goodness, second time tonight. Director Herndon and members of the committee. I'm looking at Director O'Halloran and saying Director O'Halloran here. But I would say to you that any overruns of larger amounts, we're going to be coming back. Any shortness that we feel that we can't deliver, we're going to be coming back. That is something that we are going to take a closer look at, where we are, doing a forecast of how close we're going to be, and we will be re-anchoring and coming back to the board to just give an update of what we have spent, where we need to go, and how we need to get there. Sean, anything else?
Thank you very much. Any follow-up? Okay. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public that wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Peterson?
I move approval of the FMS Award Construction Professional Services contracts recommended by the administration.
Okay, if there's not further discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Peterson's motion to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the monthly facilities matters, Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Taylor?
Aye.
And Chair Herndon?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 15, which is a report and action on Resolution 2223R-6 by Director Carr on a school safety assessment.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair, I just want to be sure that the recommendation accurately captures what the administration is requesting. The recommendation is that the administration ask the board to authorize the administration to enter into a contract with Safe Havens International, Inc. to conduct a safety assessment with the contract amount of $799,948 and all other terms and conditions as outlined in the attached contract, and to approve the administration to enter into this contract as an exception to bid procurement.
Thank you. Would administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, this evening we're bringing a report with a contract request to remain compliant with the Resolution 2223R-006 by Director Carr, passed by the August 25th, 2022 budget meeting. I have with me Miguel Sanchez, Instructional Leadership Director, and Eduardo Negron, Director of School Safety, to report out on this item. And following their report, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. Miguel Sanchez, Instructional Leadership Director for the East Region. And we're here to present the school safety assessment as requested by the resolution passed on August 25th, 2022. We granted this work on the 5 priorities for success, as we have very clear in our plans for moving the district forward. And I'm here to introduce you a company that started working on safety assessments since 2001. In order to get to this point, we started with a steering committee with Mr. Negron, Chief Cotton, and people from our procurement department, especially with Ms. Adamczyk, to make sure that we identified a provider that could do the work that the resolution expected. So we bring to you this company called Safe Havens International. It's a nonprofit school safety center based in Macon, Georgia. This company has done work in over 8,500 sites across North America, South America, Asia, the Caribbean. Thank you, sir. The Caribbean, and I believe also in the Middle East. Several districts in the Council of Great City Schools have used Safe Havens International for their audit purposes. We can talk about, for instance, Indianapolis with a school district of 23,000 children, Spokane Public Schools with 30,000 kids, Atlanta Public Schools with 54,000 students, Seminole County Public Schools, very comparable to our size, 67,000 students, Fulton County, 90,000, Hawaii, which is a one school district, 168,000 students, Orange County, 199,000, all the way to Clark County Public Schools with 305,000 students. So what do we look into the qualifications of this company, right? Why do we want to trust the work to this company? Well, we have noticed that they have worked extensively with the U.S. Department of Education. They have worked with the FBI. They have worked with Homeland Security, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Transportation Security Administration, the White House. All abroad, they have worked with the Israel National Police, also with people in Trinidad and Tobago, people in Honduras, in Bolivia, and also some private entities such as nonprofits, such as the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Aside from the safety assessments they do, this company also has supported or published, collaborated on more than 30 books on school safety nationwide and abroad as well. They have an IS 360 preparing for mass casualty incidents, a guide for schools, higher education, and houses of worship. They have a train-the-trainer program. Actually, they have worked with over 50 school districts. One of them is Wisconsin. They have done with the Department of Justice here in Wisconsin to do the train-the-trainer program for safety hazards and emergencies in schools. So the resolution called for 3 main points, right? And announced walkthroughs of randomly selected schools buildings to audit building security, documenting potential risks, intrusion from outsiders, and other physical safety concerns. Also in this resolution, we expect that analysis of building level security, emergency or crisis responses, policies and procedures with a focus on preventing and responding to violent incidents on school grounds. And finally, an assessment of the content, frequency, and participation of and quality of the school safety trainings conducted by our safety department. So this all comes at a cost, of course, but we're looking at should this company be retained for the services. The work will start in January. Of course, we have to understand that weather permitting, right, they arrived, be completed by April. There will be a presentation by the executive director to this board. Analysis will be made available for teleconferences. They will be available by emails. So they will be available at any instance we need any, we have any questions of them. There will be a written analysis final project, and the cost for 154 MPS schools and support facilities that will include this house will be about $799,948.
Thank you for this. I'm definitely in favor of it. I think every parent has that concern. I mean, it's not just like parents dropping your kids off at school. It's like, are we safe in movie theaters? Are we safe when we go to church? Are we safe when we do anything these days, it feels like? So I'm definitely in favor of it. I just was wondering when the timeline of the presentation and the written analysis. I know I see that the work will be completed January to April. I just wasn't sure like when the actual presentation would come back to us. So for instance, I just recently received an email from a teacher about concerns in her school. And so now I will be completely and adequately prepared to answer all of her questions after I get this final presentation.
Administration.
Chair Herndon, Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. The final report would be complete in April. We would receive the final report in April. And Safe Havens has indicated that they would be willing to provide us and will provide us with intermittent reports as needed for the board and for leadership.
Is there a follow-up?
Nope, that works for me. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chason.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Generally, this office has a very good track record of being able to conduct its due diligence reviews of exception to bid items of this nature prior to their consideration by the AF&P Committee. Regrettably, this item this month does not meet that standard. The administration has made themselves transparently available to assist in that review, but competing interests have not afforded me the opportunity to take advantage of that availability. As such, I'm not a member of the committee, but if there could be a motion maybe to move it forward without recommendation, that'll allow me to complete my due diligence review and bring anything to the attention of the board before the full board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now with that, Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Herndon. I know Director Carr is not here, but I thank her for even bringing this resolution forward. As a parent and someone who's worked in the district and hearing about all of the things that happen when you think about safety and what can happen. And I thank the administration for diving into this and bringing back this presentation, right? Looking forward to the more in-depth work and also to OAE's recommendation of this organization. Now that I know it's not been vetted, though I think it may be still a good organization. So with that, I'll move approval to the full board without recommendation. Chair Herndon.
Okay, thank you so much. Since we have that motion, what is the pleasure of committee? We've covered that. And is there any further discussion? Director Peterson.
Thank you. I also support this, both the resolution that Director Carr presented and the recommendations of the administration. I just have to say that it's a very sad day that we have to spend this amount of money just guaranteeing basic safety for our children and our staff. But unfortunately, I don't think there's any alternative. We really need to do the best we can to maintain our safety amongst all of our employees and children. So thank you.
Thank you. There's no further discussion. Madam Secretary, do we vote to move it?
Testimony on this item. And you do have a motion before you by Director Taylor, which is to move this item to the full board without recommendation.
All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Taylor's motion is read into the record. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. Aye. Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
Okay, Madam Secretary, with there being no further business before committee, this meeting is adjourned.